Good morning, everybody. I'm Captain Tommy Scoville, and you are on the lifeboat. I'm the connection dude. Welcome to the boat. Boy, I love that, man. Somebody said that yesterday, the connection dude. I was telling my brother, boy, do I like that. I just think that is cool, man. Boy, is that cool. First concert you saw was U2 in Vegas. I saw somebody else say that the first concert they saw was Dr. Hook. Was Dr. Hook, did he do the song Freaking at the Freakers Ball? Was that Dr. Hook? I think that's Dr. Hook. Good morning, everybody on the boat. How's that? We do have some people on the boat from Vietnam. Hello, Lee Harper. I don't know that I've ever said hello to you. Welcome to the lifeboat. You're a madman. Spanky Calhoun. There's my boy. Freaking in the morning. There's my kid. I love Dr. Hook. Yeah, I did too. I was a Dr. Hook fan growing up. Hold on. Let me just make sure that these... All righty, Calhoun. I'm glad that you're here. I love my son. Really a good kid. You know, I got so lucky. My son really turned out fantastic. He's such a good kid. I did great. Two really, really great kids. Vanderella. Never said hello to you either. Welcome to the boat. I'm glad that you caught alive too. Sweetie Todd from cold England. Sweetie Todd. So the butcher. Right? Wasn't he didn't he wield a straight razor pretty viciously? Love to our Vietnam vets. Rolling Stone, thank you. I lost a friend a year ago that was a Vietnam vet. And you know what? He's in a better place, man. And that's a really cool thing. He and I spent a lot of time talking about that. And he's he's very happy where he is. I'm not gonna lie, people. The first thumbnail I made this morning said, I got a headache and I'm not doing this, but I am going to forge forward. I don't have a migraine, but I do have a headache. So we're going to go through this. And if it starts getting worse, I'm just going to bail off early so that the ripple effect is a great topic. And this is one of my favorite topics ever. And the ripple effect on the boat, we've talked about so many times here because when one person gets sober, the world is never the same. I'm not overplaying this. When one person gets sober, the world is never the same. I'm a wicked extreme example, but take anybody that doesn't do something where they talk to people about sobriety. Let's say that all the person does is get sober. They don't help one other person on planet Earth. All they do is stop using chemicals. The Earth will never be the same. That person is going to now marry somebody that is not going to be married to a drug addict, right? They're not going to go through all of the things that entails. They're going to have children who are never going to know what it is like to have an addicted mother or father. The world will never be the same. Do you understand? If you are already a parent and you get clean and sober, your child will see what alcohol or drugs can do to somebody and the fact that they can get clean. You realize what an amazing example that is to a child? That's not a bad thing for a kid to see. That's an amazing thing for a kid to see. The fact that we are resilient human beings and no matter what happens, you can get off the deck. That's not a bad thing. Can you tell me which replay, Barbie? I would love to get rid of any scams. If you tell me what replay that's in, I'd love to get rid of that. Big deal stuff right here is right, Calhoun. And I'll tell you where it gets even crazier, right? So we've been doing this a long time, people. This is not the first show that I've done where we talk about the ripple, because the ripple effect started with a guy named Q. And if you're brand new to the boat, maybe you don't know about Q. But the reason I'm sober, right? The ripple started with a guy named Q. And Q is doing life in prison, right? He got a life sentence. That's an unfortunate thing. He did what he's accused of. He's never said he didn't do what he's accused of. And what he is accused of is taking the lives of people, 2 of them. He shot 2 people dead. He did it as a very young man in a gang. And he was sent in because young men, if they get caught doing something with a pistol, aren't going to do a whole lot of time compared to older men, right? The exception, of course, being if you happen to catch somebody. But he went in for what was supposed to be a very, very easy robbery. He was going to go in and rob a drug dealer. Drug dealers are great to rob because they don't call 911. And if you have one that you know doesn't carry weapons, it's usually a really easy score. They're usually very, very into giving you whatever you want so that you leave without being hurt. Just keeping it real. People love to rob drug dealers. So they sent him in to rob a drug dealer, and it was an older man, and he wasn't going to have any kind of defense or anything else, but there were 2 guys in there to buy drugs already. And those 2 guys, when they heard the knock on the door, went into a different room. So when Q pulled out his pistol and said, well, the money and I want the dope, the usual routine. These two guys came out of the back room blaring. It wasn't like they came out and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" They opened the door and started firing, and he shot and did a much better job than they did. They both of them unloaded a ton of their magazines were damn near empty, but he hit both of them successfully, and that's what he's in prison for. But he said, "This is it. This is where I'm at." Right? He's not going anywhere. So he was going to decide to try to create the biggest ripple that he possibly could from where he's at. And in the beginning, he tried to get everybody help. And then he decided to pick one individual at a time and work with them until he believed that person could go to the street and remain sober. And I'll tell you what, I don't know what the previous 5 did, but he did a hell of a job with me. He really did. What's the difference between opiates and opioids? Opiates come from a poppy. You grow it in a field, right? It's a beautiful flower. Then the bulb of the poppy is sliced 3 or 4 places, depending on the size of the bulb. The sap runs out. They use what looks like a credit card or any piece of plastic to take all of that gunk off of the side of the bulb. They collect that. That is then processed in one of a couple of different processes, depending on what you're going to make out of it. With the tar heroin, it's a very, very simple process. There's only a couple of things you have to do to turn that directly into the tar heroin that will be on the street. An opioid is made in a laboratory. The morphine molecule in an opioid is identical to the morphine molecule in an opiate, except it's made in a lab. They just synthetically create the same molecule. But in the process of doing that, they're not restricted on how strong they can make the product. With an opiate, you can't get stronger than the poppy. So for a simple illustration, if the best case scenario is a 100 and that season is the best season ever and the sun was great and there was, no bugs and everything was good, maybe that thing will grow a 100. And that will be the strongest heroin that thing ever produced. But it can't get stronger than that. And in a lab, you can go, okay, double it. Okay, double that. Okay, double that. And you can continue to do that forever because of the fact that it is synthetic. And the problem became they started making painkillers that didn't need to be what they were. I promise you that morphine and heroin did the trick, right? A long time ago, they did the trick. Girl on a mission. Question: when did you learn so much about drugs? While doing them or after you got sober? After I got sober. I was fascinated by drugs while I was doing them, but I was more fascinated with what they would do to me. I didn't do a tremendous amount of research on the drugs that I was doing while I was doing them. As far as the update on writing Q is in a special management unit, right? But his is for communication. So no, I'm waiting to hear back as the short answer. We will get approved. It's just going to take a long time. And when we do, it's probably going to have to be in an electronic format. So I think what we're going to do, and this was per Q, is we're going to set up a TrueLinks account, right, with him. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come on here and I'm going to give the entire lifeboat the pass to that. And everybody will be able to go on there and everybody will be able to say, thank you. I really doubt he will be able to answer even a portion of them. He's the kind of guy that might try, but it may just be a thanks. But he's a very, very solid individual. He really is. And that ripple effect. I mean, one sober person changes the world. It's not a cliche and it's not something, it literally changes the world. And if that person happens to be somebody that gets it, right? Somebody that realizes that even if you're not a 12-stepper, the 12th step is the greatest thing anybody's ever written. I'm sorry, it really is. It's just absolutely phenomenal because, Freddie Fender, good concert. Everybody knows what it is like to need something so badly that if you don't get it, you really feel like you can't live without it. Like it's going to be the end, right? I was willing to rob a bank to keep putting that stuff in my body, right? And then I was willing to do it again and again and again, right? That's nobody in their right mind does that. So you may never get anywhere close to putting your hand on the door of a bank to yank it open and tell you want all the cash. But if you're putting the key in the Volvo after you've had, say, 5 beers, right, or 3 mixed drinks, and you know that you don't have you're not drunk, right? You're not drunk. And you've driven like this so many times. Yeah. You know what, Lori T, this is a very, very interesting thing, isn't it? And this is a question that we could do 15 shows on, right? Life in prison is too much for his situation. It's, oh, wow. Jay Giles' first concert. Tell me you're not jealous of Pat Shore.
It's not shabby.
That's not shabby. Jay Giles was a great band. When you take somebody's life, if he had shot my brother, I'd want him to be in prison for the rest of his life. Is right? I mean, that's kind of how, and so I understand, and he does too. He gets it. He does. He's never once complained in the entire time I've known him that he has a life sentence. He's doing what he can to try to get out. And he says very, very articulately that he believes it will be a better place, right? That the earth would be better off if he was on the other side of the gate versus the side that he's on now. And I will tell you something right now. Q has a mission that he wants to do in life, and it isn't this. It has to do with prison a lot more than it has to do with sobriety, but he would like to stop kids from ending up like him. If Q had had a really positive male influence in his life, this wouldn't have happened. Since learning about Q, I believe he was destined to meet you in prison to help you. For what I've been learning by you, he's an angel for other convicts. I hope he gets and continues his mission. You know something? For those that do not believe, and I respect people that believe whatever they want to believe, and that's the truth. But I'll tell you something. I watched so many things happen around that man that if you watched, you'd go, something's just not right. Like something's just bizarre. I watched that dude walk into situations where anyone else in prison would have got killed. Like I watched him walk into a situation where somebody had called someone a punk. That's never not going to be a fight. There's no way to make that stop because it's an instant fight thing. And he walked right into the middle of it, which also you cannot do in prison. Two guys are squaring off. You don't stop a fight. You do not stop a fight. And he just walked in, grabbed one of them by one hand, grabbed the other by the other, and walked them both off. Like, what in the hell is wrong with you? And one of them wasn't his race. I looked and thought, my friend is going to be killed before lunch. They're going to kill him. Q was one of those dudes, man. And he doesn't care. I am so sorry. I just got rid of something I did not want to get rid of. Now I have to back up because I'm not very bright. Davey says, do you think we make ourselves sick? I have rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia. I take gabapentin and smoke pot. What do you think? Do I think we make ourselves sick? Sometimes. Sometimes we absolutely make ourselves sick. I think that swallowing emotion is probably one of the most undiagnosed things on planet Earth. I think that what we do emotionally affects us physically in a way that most people don't talk about and that most doctors don't understand or even want to comprehend. And my experience has been doctors that wear stethoscopes around their neck don't have any respect for people who do counseling. It's very rare. The doctor I work with now gets it, right? But keep firing a doctor until you do, until you get one that gets it. The doctor that I am with now had a list of people that he said, these are therapists that I recommend because these therapists are fantastic. So I do think that a lot of what we do in life absolutely contributes to inflammation, which is the cause of pretty much all pain that we have. So yeah, I do think that we cause our own pain, not in the sense that we draw all bad things that happen to us, like that kind of crap. I don't believe any of that at all. You know what I mean? There are things that happen that you have nothing to do with. That's the 5%. But if we learn to deal better with the 5% of crap that happens to us that we can't do anything about, we're going to feel less sick more often. And I believe that. But I don't believe that there's any way to duck it. You know what I mean? Like these are things that get in your body and they make you sick. But sadly, we do beat the hell out of ourselves really, really badly by not allowing what is inside of us out, and to do it in a way that doesn't damage you. You follow me? Rachel says, in perfect timing, like we planned this last night, Scientology audit is relentless. Now, I think she's talking about the cat that stands out in front of the building in Los Angeles. And she's right. This dude is relentless. But if you've ever heard anybody describe what happens in auditing, right? Where you sit down and you hold the cans. And it sounds a lot like psychotherapy, right? Or it sounds a lot like sitting down with a counselor. What's the difference? The difference is a counselor's never going to call you a liar and tell you to back up and do it again. A counselor's never going to say, I don't believe we're through. Keep talking, right? Let's start this again. You're lying to me. Keep talking. Like that kind of crap never happens, right? Because if you're talking to a therapist and you're lying to them, there's a reason you're lying to them, right? The therapist would like to let you get that out and then maybe try to figure out what is it that is causing you to want to, to not take these things head on. But when you try to work through the problems in your past, if the person who's helping you work through that is bad at it, you cannot believe the damage you can do. For real. This is why, and I am the biggest proponent in the world for therapy, but I am the biggest proponent in the world for firing your therapist until you find one that you are so comfortable with that you feel like you're talking to your brother, your best friend, your wife, your husband, all rolled into one, and that this person is not judgmental and that no matter what rolls off your lips, you are completely convinced this person will understand. They'll listen and they won't judge. Keep firing them until you get that person. And see, here's the thing. Everybody, this is kind of weird, right? To be really honest with you, at the higher custody levels in prison, everybody respects everybody. I promise you. There's no disrespect going on at any level, because if you disrespect somebody, you're going to get into a fight or or worse, right? There's going to be really. Well, that might be interesting. Scientology audit is supposed to show up at an event today where COB will attend. COB. I'm feeling really stupid, but I am forgetting what COB means. And I know I shouldn't, but I don't know what COB is right now. But where is this taking place? Sorry. Boy, you know what, people? The problem with touchscreen is it's a touchscreen. You touch the screen, Johnny. So there is a common misconception among people that do YouTube. The chairman of the board. There you go. Thank you. Makes a lot more sense. There you go. Sorry. But something, the whole right, all of the acronym things, like all of you people do this, and I'm getting better because every time, yes, thank you, Shanti. Thank you for all of us that are old and still struggle with cell phones. There you go. Yeah, thanks. See, Pat gets it.
What's the misconception?
What's that?
There's a misconception of a YouTuber. What are you saying?
If you hadn't said that, I probably would have been cool because I would have boned back to it. But now I have absolutely no idea what I was talking about. Yeah. I got nothing. Now I got nothing.
Moving along.
When the body says no, book by a physician. Book by a physician. I don't know that. The elf on the shelf thing. Yeah, I do better when I like the elf on the shelf. Hey, VT Kitten, good to see you. We talked about this the other day with the auditor, right? And the whole going in and doing the standing out in front, sort of. That's kind of like bull baiting everybody that walks in or comes out, right? In Scientology speak, I mean that's kind of what is going on. I don't kind of dig. It's not my thing. It isn't, but I do like that he's messing with them. I really do. I like that he's messing with them. I think that he's doing damage. And I think that if we're all doing damage, I don't much care how you're doing damage. If it's not something that I find entertaining, I may not watch it, but I'm still going to cheer for you, right? I'm still going to cheer for the cat. I think what he's doing is going to do damage. And the more damage we can do to this place, the better a chance I got of buying that building and turning it into a shelter. I think that place would be the best shelter spot on planet Earth. You could not come up with a better spot for a shelter than the Celebrity Center Scientology building. That would be perfect. Hey, Ann C, I'm not going to lose any sleep about it. You're good. I do get up really early in the morning. I do. It's usually actually a little before that, but I also go to bed really, really early. The reason, you see, is it is the time of day when people who are really struggling tend to be up. It's your 9-year-old's birthday. Well, happy birthday to your 9-year-old. How cool is that? And what a beautiful time of year to be in Vermont too. Let's see this one more time. That's why I researched Scientology, was watching TV, and the woman Leah was talking about just talking about it too. So I followed it. It's a nut house. That's a pretty I'll bet you that that is a very, very common anybody could have written that. There are so many people that probably have that exact same story. Um, Tell me this is not the perfect Unabomber hood. I was telling Johnny before we went live. If I put on sunglasses, I'm telling you, this is my favorite my Unabomber getup. Tommy, question. My father abandoned my three brothers and our mom. He was an alcoholic. How much do you think it affects kids? Oh my goodness. Um, oh my goodness. More than you possibly could. I mean, there's Bruce. There's just no way to even put into words the amount of damage. People in the perfect world, right? And you got to be. I'm sorry if you don't get this, then I'm sorry that you don't get this. But in a perfect world, right? Every single child would have a fantastic female and male influence in their life, right? That's a perfect world. In that perfect world, they would also love each other so that they could see the interaction and all of that would be just taken for granted that that's kind of how it works. But I wasn't any good at that. Most of us aren't, right? And very often we end up with that not working. What you're describing, Bruce, is one of the worst possible case scenarios, right? Where abandonment and abandonment issues will last an entire life. And it affects how we have relationships with everybody from that point on. I would recommend a ton of therapy. And by the way, if by chance you think that that's something that I recommend to people because I think that there's something wrong with them or that there's something wrong with how they grew up, my mother and my father stayed married their entire lives, right? They were great. And all of my brothers and sisters did great, right? I was the only one that ended up in the joint. So it wasn't a nurture thing, right? In my life, I just went out there and did what I did. So it can happen either way, but I need a hell of a lot of therapy, right? And I had fantastic married parents. I would recommend Bruce a ton of therapy and just be really open and honest because that is the kind of thing that really tears people up. I really hope you understand the concept that the abandonment is, again, no one in their right mind abandons their kids. No one in their right mind does that. You get that? It sounds absolutely insane when I say I robbed a bunch of banks. It's no less insane that man walked out on his family. It's no less insane. It might be more insane, right? But it's the same disease. And I promise you, and I'm not making any excuses because you don't walk out on your family. And I'm not buying, sticking up for them either. But you do realize why this individual walked out, right? It had nothing to do with you. It had nothing to do with your mother. This is a disease, right? And your father had a disease that he couldn't control. No, this is not a onesie. Boy, do I wish that this was a onesie. They don't make onesies my size, I don't think. Do they?
I don't think so.
Yeah, if they had onesies my size, I'd be rocking one right now. Yeah, Bruce, you know something? That's a great. You're right. You're so spot on. You really are. You're so spot on. I'm going to ask for Q's permission, and I think it's probably a lock. But I have some of his writings that I left prison with, and it's stuff that he was putting together on this subject, on this exact subject. And the really cool thing is, you'll hear his voice in it. But I'm going to see if I can maybe print it somewhere so you can see some of what he's written, because he's a pretty incredible human being. He really is. And I don't know if you've ever sat down with somebody who's just, I don't even know what the right word is. They're just kind of in tune, right? I don't believe in gurus. I don't believe in any of that garbage, right? I'm just not. I don't think that there are gurus, and I don't. as much as I say Q saved my life, what people do is they help you to help yourself. That's what anybody that's good at anything does in rehab or in mental health or in anything. They're going to help you to help you, right? But he was really good at helping people help themselves. And if you ever just talk to somebody that seems so in tune that there's never really a question that you ask that the answer they give you doesn't seem enlightened. But when you meet people like that, it's a very odd thing. And if the person doesn't really want the adulation that comes with being really slick, then it's bizarre because Q doesn't buy into any of it. What I would say to him, yeah, your insight, he'd be like, you know what, you're wasting about 8% of the time that we spend with one another talking about how much you like what I say. He's like, with all due respect, maybe you should just stop. I mean, he's one of those, he's very pragmatic. My ex walked out on our 3 kids, 7, 4, and 2 at the time. I raised them with, thankfully, the help of a loving family. She chose the booze, but my kids are fine. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I really am. I'm so sorry. And it's just such a hard thing to hear, Nobody chooses booze. And I know what you're saying. Nobody chooses booze. It's just that it's so hard. It really is. It's so hard in the statistics. This is another thing, people, right? I work every day. I work with addicts, and I work with somebody, A, right? A gets sober. B assumes if A can get sober, right? Absolutely, I can get sober. And it shouldn't be any harder for me than it should have been for A. And it's never that case. Every single person who gets sober needs to, it's really a struggle, right? And it's a struggle that's different for every person. And I've worked with people. I've held their hands and watched them drink themselves to death, right? I would have done anything on earth for these people. There are individuals who lose this fight every single day. And that's the reality. And that's why that I sit here and I do silly things like this, right? This is why we do silly things, because 350 people today in America are going to lose that battle. So if you got 2 days in, man, I'm stoked for you. You hear me? If you got 2 days in, we're fired up about that, because the stuff on the street today will kill you. We're not talking about getting high anymore. We're not talking about being dope sick. This stuff is killing people. 350 of them a day. If I got out of prison and went back to my life, even trying to chip, right? Not being addicted, having a habit and just doing it. If I got high after leaving prison, we wouldn't be here, because the amount of dope that I did, like one shot, I would have caught one, man. I would have caught a hot one. I did a lot of dope, By the end of my time, I was doing 3/4 of a gram in a shot. Yay, caught my first live. Good afternoon from the UK. Happy to all of you lovely people on this boat. Deanna B, I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad you caught live. That's awesome. Yeah, Paula gets it. Paula gets it. The cops are not the people to call for mental issues. They are awful to us suffering. Sadly, this is the truth. Now, before we start hating on them, they got the worst job on the planet. They have the worst job on the planet. I'm not kidding you. I would rather run a mop at a peep show, right, than have to have that job. It is thankless, right? The most people hate them, and the people who don't hate them are afraid of them, right? Their lights go on behind me. I'm terrified. And I got nothing in my car. I don't break any laws anymore. I don't do anything wrong. And I've been pulled over twice since getting out of prison. And the second time, I swear to you, I looked at the cop and said to him, I'm like, you want to see something? He goes, what? I went, and my hand was doing this number. And he's like, what's wrong? I said, every single time one of you people have pulled me over, I knew I was going to jail. I'm like, you can search my car. You can do whatever the hell you want to it. I'm like, I'm on paper right now from the feds. I'll tell you, because you got to tell them anyway. I said, I'm a convicted bank robber, and I got a bunch of other felonies if you want to search the car. And he came back. He's like, yeah, I don't want to search the car. You're good. I'm sorry, Lori T. That sucks. Honestly, Lori T. That sucks. And you know something? Sadly, the more that drugs make their way into our society, the more fathers bail on kids. I'm sorry, it's just a fact, right? It's a fact. And the reason is the more drugs are in our environment. It was a very common thing for people to party. They got to college, they experimented with a little bit of weed, maybe they did some mushrooms or some acid or whatever, a little blow. And about the time they were getting out of college, that was probably the end of it, right? That was probably about the time that most people would start getting into a normal life, right? Mid-20s, right? Somewhere in there. So by the time you were getting into your 30s or 40s, people party into their 50s and 60s, right? We just lost somebody yesterday who was doing ketamine in his 50s, right? And, let's touch on that one. A lot of you people sent me some hate mail. You think I'm happy that this dude had ketamine in his system? And a lot of people said, I know that Lester Holtz apparently and a couple of other reporters came out and said there wasn't any ketamine in his system, that he just showed signs that the ketamine had worked on. People, that is the dumbest thing. I'm sorry, not to any of you, but to him. So what you're saying is, without any of that drug in the system, you looked at his body and went, this was abuse from ketamine. Look, the abuse that would do to your body, right? You couldn't distinguish that when you looked at it from abusing any number of substances that do very similar things, right? Any of the methyl-based drugs would look very, very similar in what's going to do to abuse to the body and the brain for that matter. But he also had buprenorphine in his system, right? We all knew that. He was on Suboxone. He was going to be for the rest of his life. He had been open about that. So he had Suboxone in his system, and he did have ketamine in his system. In fact, I have the report, right? It was just under 3,500 nanoliter or nano something per milliliters, nanograms per milliliters. And that is considered a high enough dose to knock somebody out for anesthesia. This ain't therapy. I take no joy in that. I'm not happy about that. I was the first cat that came out and said, I really hope this dude just had a heart attack. I'm the friggin' captain of the lifeboat, man. For real, right? I'm the connection dude. I want everybody to die of natural causes. I take no joy in that. But the reason you come out and, I had 9, maybe more, maybe 10 people who left comments or sent emails and said, you should just let the dude rest in peace. What we should do is anytime somebody famous dies from a drug overdose, we shouldn't talk about it. We should keep their reputation spotless and not put that into the conversation in this country where 350 people a friggin' day are dying because getting high is just such a part of our society that we joke about it on TV shows, right? Everything is, this is a part of our society, right? And I'm not necessarily saying I got a problem with that. But if drugs are such a part of your society that everybody jokes about it, everybody does it, it's a standing joke, right? That painkillers, right? Watch any of the adult cartoons. That's how they get that's always how they would get the grip that's out of the hospital, right? How many Loratab is it going to take to get you to leave? 40, yeah. That's usually the standard answer, right? 40. Yeah, see, this is a very good point. And I don't know that I've ever said this point on the air because it honestly is a very, very intelligent point. And in 1,500 shows, I don't think I've ever said this. If the person weighing blow on a scale used that scale to weigh fent, then you're in trouble, right? I don't know that I've ever said that. But if a person is using a scale to measure fentanyl and anything else, that anything else is in danger, right? Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't want you people to confuse fentanyl and carfentanil. Carfentanil is the stuff that if you touch, you're going to die, right? That's carfentanil. It's not meant for human beings. All right, Calhouni, I'll talk to you later. It's meant to knock out elephants. I'm not being funny. That's what it's made for. I would like to believe that Matthew Perry would like people to get help because of what happened to him. I think he would rather have that in the discussion than not in the discussion. James Smith says, we get kids going down 6 at a time. We have a real problem with street dealers. Yeah, it's such a messed up thing that we've got going on right now. And I don't know what part of the country that you're in, James, but sadly, this is a dream for a drug dealer, right? Just from a drug dealer standpoint, this drug is a dream, especially if it didn't kill people, right? That's not the drug dealers that are doing that. That's the suppliers that are doing that, right? That's the people above them. That's the cartels. These things aren't being stamped out in the United States. We know that because they're getting caught at the border already in pill form. These are being pressed on the Mexican side of the border, Vancouver Island. James, I've spent a lot of time on Vancouver Island. My God, have you got a problem with street dealers? Yeah, boy, do you have a problem. Sharon, this is another important one. This is an important distinction, okay? I was on 75 milligrams of fentanyl patches for years, even stepping down doses. It was horrible withdrawals for months. I believe it. I believe it. And what you were taking is a drug known as alpha fentanyl. It is a very clean drug. It is a very, very clean painkiller. And it is an excellent painkiller. Sadly, it is viciously addicting, right? Viciously habit forming. And it is very difficult to come off. The garbage that is on the streets is not what Sharon has or Sharon used. It is an analog of that, right? Like I was talking about with ketamine last night. Ketamine is an analog of PCP. A lot of people didn't like that either. It doesn't do anything like PCP does. No, in low doses, it certainly doesn't, right? Start taking that stuff not in micrograms, but start doing it like people in clubs do it, where you're taking it in like, a quarter of a gram, and you start getting up into disassociation from what's really going on. And if you ask anybody in the drug game, what would be considered the disassociative drug, right? In the drug world, they'd say PCP. Are there any others? Well, ketamine, and then they'd start listing other ones. But those are the big two. Definitely a lot of similarities. I know what you mean. We have so many talented musicians and people who do things on this boat. I have no talent. However, I have a tremendous singing voice. Correct, James.
You're modest.
And I am modest, as my daughter would say. I'm the best at modest. No more heroin. It's all homemade crap with fentanyl or carfentanil. It's a bloody nightmare. Absolutely right, James. And James is in a part of the world that is almost ground zero. If it's not ground zero, it's really close. That is one of the epicenters right now of fent on planet Earth and trank dope and all of that. Vancouver Island's getting it. So is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania, the United States, particularly the Kensington area of Philadelphia, is just, if you people have never seen Kensington, Google it when I am done with this show and take a look at Kensington and come to the realization that that is in the United States of America, right? That is in our country right now. What? It looks like a movie set from a dystopian after, post-apocalyptic World War III thing. It is terrifying. People laying on the streets, the zombie effect. And I don't like I don't like those terms because I think it takes away, but that's the look, right? We've watched it in movies where the guy drags one leg and, these drugs are causing amputations left and right. That's a part of this that you see pictures of, but people aren't talking about. They're setting up wound treatment centers on the street, right? Amputations are happening every day in this country. People are losing arms, legs, hands. Yeah, Barbie, don't go. If it triggers you, don't go. It is horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. I've heard other people say it triggers them as well. It never did for me. Honest to God, it never did for me. Not to that extreme. Like if I've seen clips of people sitting on a couch nodding, and that's hard for me to look at. I don't like the biggest trigger for me is actually watching like the scene from Pulp Fiction where he draws the blood up into the syringe. I can't watch that. That was actually I watched that film with sobriety, was clean, and I watched that and relapsed instantly. And I don't mean I did drugs instantly, but instantly watching that, I was already off the rocks. I spent probably the next 2 or 3 weeks, and it was just a constant thought. And I kept saying to myself, well, I don't want to do heroin anyway, right? What I really wanted to do was shoot coke. And I wanted to see that blood was coming up into something clear as opposed to something dark and chocolatey. And in my stupid head, I talked myself into the fact that it's two different things. That was about another 6 years. You know what? We'll let this go on because he's taking a shot at a government that's not mine anyway, right? Most towns only have less than 20,000 people each, with 10 plus liquor stores in each town. Trudy likes his tax money outlets. It's pretty sad, isn't it? It really is. Are ketamine and angel dust the same thing? They are not. However, angel dust is PCP, right? Penicillidine. I don't know if I said that right. Penicillidine, something like that. PCP. Ketamine is an analog of PCP or angel dust. So it's in the same family. They are both dissociative drugs. They are both drugs that you can get so high on that you do not know reality. And I know that people talk about that all the time, but I'm here to tell you, if people who tell you that they did LSD and that they had, 2-hour conversations with, with Mickey Mouse and the stories that you hear, did you ever see a cartoon character tripping in your life? Did you ever see anything like that? No. I mean, I've done a lot of that stuff. Maybe people do it differently. I've never had a really serious dissociative episode on any of that stuff. I really haven't. I always knew I was a human being. I always knew that what was going on was I had taken too many drugs, right? But that can stop when you take dissociative drugs. Like, you won't know you got high. You will just not know what's going on. And that once that begins to happen, that's where you see the really insane, the guy walking down the street, he's been shot 16 times. They also shut off pain receptors. PCP in particular literally just turns them off. So when you see the unbelievable, the guy, they say he was just, he got shot 16 times. I've told this story on the boat, I think. When I was trying to get my license to be an ambulance driver, I was like 18. I wanted to get an EMT license. So I took the course and I did all that. And I was riding, you had to ride along on an ambulance. And a guy had wrecked a Corvette. A black guy had wrecked a Corvette, a brand new, beautiful one, into a bridge embankment and blew the car up. Those cars are plastic. So when we got there, I couldn't even tell it was a Corvette. It was just absolutely destroyed. And we jumped out of the truck and we went running over to him. And he was still strapped in the passenger seat and his femur was broken. And I mean, broken. Like, you could see the femoral artery, which fortunately was still intact, but you could see it. And he was holding the broken bone in his hand like this, right? And I walked into the car and he went, "Yeah, I'm going to need a lot of help." He's like, "My leg's definitely broken." And I looked down at him and I walked back and I said to my partner, who was a black guy, and one of the funniest deals, I said, "This guy's in shock." And he goes, "Wow, you diagnosed that in 4 seconds?" He's like, "On your third case ever." He's like, "That's impressive." I'm like, "Dude is holding his broken bone in his hand and talking to me." He goes, "Yeah, he's not in shock." He's like, "Go ask him when the last time he got dusted is." And like, I hadn't even really broke the ice. I just said to this guy, "Look, I'm going to come back. I'm going to get you help." So I came back. I'm like, "Hey man, listen, you done any dope today? Did you get dusted or do anything like that?" He's like, "Man, that's got nothing to do with this accident." Like, he didn't deny it. He was like, "That had nothing to do with this accident," but no pain. Like, I was talking to my partner and I said, "We'll get we had a device that would pull, the legs so that you could put it into traction and that kind of thing." He's like, you could take this guy and put one shoulder under each arm and we could just sort of hobble him we didn't." He said, "But this dude's not going to feel any pain." He's like, "He is not going to feel any pain." They turn the receptors off. It is just, not the receptors. It turns off the nerve endings. It's like they're just not there. You're not feeling like that. It's really, really bizarre and awful, right? Nothing good ever happens on this stuff. These are bad drugs, bad drugs in that amount, right? But this is why conversations like this need to happen. I can show you at least 6 emails over the 3 years that I've been doing this from people who have said, "You will not believe how much ketamine has changed my life." But they're going into a doctor's office. They're working with a doctor. They're taking amounts that are minuscule, right? It would have taken them 2 years of saving up their script to get what they had found in that man's body. Like, they are microdosing at a level that is microdosing. And that's great. That's great. I feel the same way about shrooms, right? People give me crap about this. If you are microdosing shrooms, right? Itty bitty amounts of them. I don't care if you're driving. I know people are going to go nuts. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't have that effect. Does it have an effect on the mind? It does. It does not affect you like that in any way. You can pass any test you want. It's not that kind of a buzz. I know that I'm going to get hate mail, but you can't know. Look, mushrooms, I've done a lot of them. Ketamine, I've done a decent amount of ketamine too. And ketamine was one of those drugs that for me, there was a perfect amount of ketamine. And if you did the perfect amount of ketamine, it felt to me like I was doing ecstasy, like it was a really good time. But if you did a little bit too much or a little bit, not enough, then it just sucks. And I eventually got to a point where I just wouldn't do it. And the only way that I could do it was in a needle, because there were guys that were buying it in liquid form, right? You could get it south of the border in liquid form, and you could predict exactly how much you were doing. If you're buying this stuff on the street, you're probably not getting liquid. You're not getting it, sealed from a pharmacy. What you're getting is bathtub stuff. It's going to be in a powder. You don't know how much it's been cut. So you got no idea how much to take. You snort lines of it. The first line may have absolutely no resemblance to the third line. Do you understand this as a concept? If you take a pile of powder and then you blanch in a bigger pile of powder and you mix it up, right? There are hot spots. Unless you're viciously good at this, right? Or you're using a machine, there are going to be parts within that gram that have much higher concentrations of the actual drug versus the cut. This happens with Fent. They mix it all up and they press pills. Number 5 pill doesn't go bang. There's nothing in it. But number 6 pill, right, has 6 milligrams of fentanyl, 2 being deadly. That's what it is, right? And when you start talking about something like carfentanil, so carfentanil, a grain of sand size chunk of carfentanil, so literally like a grain of salt, will kill you. How do you cut that? How are you going to throw that into a bag of powder and cut it? That grain is still going to be in that bag. I promise you. And it's going to go up somebody's nose or in somebody's arm, or it's going to get pressed into a pill, and that's it. Gone. Right? Okay. So, as far as how to find a doctor in town who will do microdosing, I'm going to say this. I would like you to listen very, very carefully to what I am about to say. There are a bunch of people online who will tell you that they will do treatments for ketamine and for psilocybin. Okay? All of us here are probably here. The vast majority of us are here because we've been unable to control drugs at one time or another in our life, right? We have had chemical dependency issues, right? Okay. This is a dangerous drug. If you have chemical dependency issues, maybe think about mushrooms instead of ketamine. That would be my advice. Can you do ketamine every day? Yeah, you can. Like, I know people that did ketamine every single day. You do mushrooms every single day, you're going to get a very, very different effect, I promise you. I am way more comfortable with psilocybin as a concept for treating people, and I'm not a doctor. I'm not. But I've never met anybody who overdosed on mushrooms. I've never heard that story, right? Where's the dead guy from mushrooms? Because I don't know it. I've never heard that story. So I'm really freaked out of things that are made in labs. Oh, Sharon, excellent. Now, there are a ton of people online that will do the same thing for shrooms, right? There are a ton of them. Now, are you going to die eating shrooms? No. However, you can really mess your brain up if you're trying to do. I guess it depends on what you're trying to do shrooms for, right? If you're trying to eat these and go to a rock concert and have a good time and do this one and stare at your fingers, right? That's great, right? You can do that. If you're trying to sit down and have it be some kind of a spiritual journey or whatever, that's something that's very real for that drug. And there's a lot of people that really kind of go that route. Do it with a guide, especially if you've never done it before. Do it with a guide. And there are people that will, to get off of depression meds, people are doing it for this reason, but do it with a professional. Can I please, SPTV Tattoo Warrior? Can I please put up Diary of a Ghost? I'd like to know exactly. Diary of a Ghost gets the participation trophy here on the lifeboat. Let me make a bigger deal of that, though. Because if the SPTV Tattoo Warrior is making a big deal of it, then that's a big deal. Stay clean on the streets. I just had to hide. How I stay away, I just don't know. But I have been clean since 2017. Good for you. Good for you, diary. That is not an easy thing to do, and it is a very difficult thing to be homeless as well. Not easy, but to get up off the deck from that, I mean, that's heroic stuff, right? That's nothing shy of heroic. You get that? And the best part of this, people, I hope everybody gets this, right? Everybody gets this. Once you do this, once you beat the chemical that's killing you, once you get that crap out of your life, what do you think you can't beat? I mean it. You got a substance that owns you that you can't live without, and you manage to beat that. What else is going to intimidate you on this planet? If you're looking at that any other way, then you ain't getting it, right? When I say that sobriety is base camp, people, I don't just mean that it's the start. I mean like you're clear. You've gone clear, right? There's no dope in your system. Your brain is firing for the first time in a long time like it's supposed to. Right? I know, right? Yeah, can never feed the monkey. Boy, oh boy, did you say that right or what? I have a friend on the boat. And I've been friends with this person for I don't know how long anymore. Honestly, I don't. It's got to be over a year though. Just a great person, and like everybody else, this person struggles, and the substance of choice was alcohol. And never busted this person's chops because they were using. But we all, everyone involved kind of knew the day was coming where this person would quit. And this person is telling me now on the daily how much better they're feeling. You know, it's like day 4 or whatever. And they're really starting to feel the brain start to fire. And because of how much I communicated with this person throughout the process of them finally saying, yeah, I'm going to quit, I'm getting a lot of communication about how much they're feeling the effects of coming out of the fog. And I promise you, people, if you're in the fog, come out of it. Good stuff. It really is. This is a much better life to go through, aware of what's going on, right? I remember somebody in the boat once, it got to be a couple of years ago, came and said, the question became, I'm sorry, hold on one second. Diary of a Ghost. Thoughts and prayers here. The Diary of a Ghost. Diary said that that's Diary has a brain tumor she's living with. And there are we have a few people on the boat currently who are as well. And we have one that the doctors have just said, you know what, we're gonna leave that there. And it's been, I want to say 8 years that this person, if I'm wrong, I'm not wrong by much. It's under a decade, but it's like right up near a decade that this person is just, it's never grown in size. And I got a thing with my brain that's thankfully not a tumor. It is just a dead spot. But you know what? We just keep doing what we're doing, right? We keep moving forward. Dialectic behavioral training is a beautiful thing, right? It's the ampersand. I just want you to think, honestly, if I would ever get another tat, and I don't know that I'll ever get any more ink, but if I would ever get any more ink, the ampersand would be a pretty good tat, right? Yeah, I'm having a really bad day, and right, I'm working on the starts of a migraine, and right, no matter what's going on, there's always that and, right? No matter how bad it is, and I got to clean the kitty litter, and I got people that need the help. Right, I got people that want to talk about getting sober, and I'm probably going to keep doing it. Same here. I've got a tumor right behind my eye on my pituitary gland that has never grown. Says E Landscaper. E Landscaper, good to see you here again, my brother. I'm glad you're here. Wow, and Walsh, what a cool thing to say. Do you love this? Tommy, an ERRN here. So she's an emergency room nurse. The boat has really changed my attitude about the people behind the drugs. Your ripple effect grows tremendously, and I thank you and the crew for that light. Wow, for the light. How cool is that? What a beautiful thing to say. That, I'm telling you. And that is such a beautiful way to start the day. Now, remember what I forgot all that long ago? I'm back. It only took 54 minutes. But let me tell you something that has happened real recently here, people. And there is a common misconception on YouTube there's a common misconception on YouTube that seems to be the zero-sum game, right? So let's say that one of you starts a channel, and that channel is about living your best life, connection, and being sober. It would sound a lot like the lifeboat, right? So you have to be a threat to the lifeboat, correct? I mean, if you take people and they watch your stuff, that obviously has to hurt the lifeboat. This misconception is just because people don't seem to understand this big red button thing. It's never a zero-sum game. And I have been saying since I started the boat that in my dreams, there's a bunch of these. In my dreams, there are people who say, I love what Tommy does, but you know what? I think that I got a different voice and there's something that I want to say. 5 of you have sent me info saying that's me. I'm starting this channel. I got an email this morning before I went live from a channel that's going to be called. I won't say who it is, but I'm outing it because I dig it. Between the Cracks. That's not a great name for a channel. Seriously, I read that and I was like, that's a really cool name for a channel. That's a really cool name for a channel. You're right, Tommy. The amount of resilience and confidence you have after taking a substance that controlled your everyday life is unmatched. Kay Taylor gets it. Yeah. Johnny just backed that up. Kay Taylor gets it. What the hell else are you going to do? For real, what do you think is going to intimidate me after smack? Right? After heroin. What do you think is going to scare me after heroin? For real. You know? Never commented on a live, but I've come from SPTV and I love the boat. Good. So glad you're here. You know what? Kay Taylor, I love that. I really do. I think that's just, I feel that way. I really do every day, you know, and it changes your perspective on a lot of other things, right? On a lot of other things. My son and my daughter, right? They're of the age where, you know, kids don't need as much help as they get older, but when they do, it usually is in the form of cash, right? And for the first time in my life, I'm in a position where that's not an issue. If they need help, they can call dad, and dad can send them some cash, which is a beautiful thing, right? It is an absolutely beautiful thing to be able to help your kids. But I want to tell you something. That first moment when my child reached out, that realization that I wonder how many times he wanted to do that and just thought there's no way he'll have a buck he can help me with. Right? It was really like a kick in the stomach. And the trouble with being alone in sobriety is I could have let that kick in the stomach get me high. For real. I was doing everything right. I got money in my pocket. I'm taking care of the kids. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. But that one moment of, man, how many times did he need me and I wasn't there? Could have put me right back to being where I couldn't help him. People, connection, I am the connection, dude. Because nothing magical happens. I'm not doing anything magical. But if we get everybody together, magical stuff happens. And you know what? And they'll say it was the boat. We'll all get credit, right? And you know, the cool thing, no one will stick around long enough to have heard this. It's at the end of the boat. But for real, that's what they'll say. They'll say the lifeboat saved them. Connection saved them. Connection saved them. And whether you're connecting here or you're connecting on Reese's channel or you're connecting on my brother's channel or you're connecting on Aaron's channel, if you're meeting people and you're learning about them and you're caring for them and you're wondering where they are if they're not in the chat and you guys start exchanging information and you go, well, how do you do that, Tommy? You know what I mean? You put your information up. The entire world's going to see the damn thing. Guess what? Go over to Facebook. I don't like it either, right? I don't ever use Facebook. I don't. But the lifeboat's got a page over there and there's hundreds and hundreds of people in it and you can go into the private messages and meet each other. And that's how people go out. But Q threw a rock that started a ripple, right? And the ripple became the lifeboat. And now we got Between the Cracks and we got Needing a Meeting. We got Miss Dragon. And you know what? They're just going to keep coming. They are. And if you've got a voice and you want, and your story should be told, or if you think Tommy's spot on, but he misses this, great, man. Don't tell me what I miss. Do it yourself, and I will help you. I will promote this thing. I will tell people it's out there. I promise you. And I'll be more than happy to come on and, and we can do an interview thing or whatever. But there can't be enough of these. You understand that? There can't be enough of these. There can't be. And how many channels have we got currently, Johnny Scoville?
On YouTube?
On the Big Red Button.
61 million?
61 million channels on YouTube. There'll be a bunch more that go up today. They're not going to be threatening the lifeboat.
61,300,000.
61,300,000. There'll be a ton more that go up today, and none of them are threatening the lifeboat any more than you will be if you spin out a channel that helps people with anything. Right? I promise you it ain't going to hurt my feelings. How strong is fentanyl compared to buprenorphine or heroin? That's a great question, and it is always misanswered. Always misanswered. This is almost impossible to answer. You will hear 50 to 100 times stronger than heroin. I think that there's probably pretty close to accuracy in that. You will also hear numbers that are way more. I think it's probably about 50 times stronger than heroin. Not that it matters, because once you get 2 to 3 times stronger than heroin, we're into the ridiculousness, right? The trouble with fentanyl is that the analog, particularly on the street, is it has no legs at all. You go straight up and you come straight down. So you might be well for 3 to 4 hours. This is why I was saying earlier, it's a drug dealer's dream, because you got 3 or 4 hours and then you're not just sober, you're sick. You got to buy the next one. So guys are doing 4 fixes, 5 fixes a day. When they started complaining about that and demanding heroin back, this is the theory. They added xylazine to the product, right? Which is very similar to a benzodiazepine, but it's made to tranquilize a horse. They add that into it. The drug is now known as Trank. It's in all 50 states. It has killed people on the lifeboat already. Seen those reports. So it is terrifyingly coming to a place near you. Girl on a mission, you need to find Seventh Son. The two of you are going to get along. Where do hamburgers go to dance? She's going to get along beautifully with that. Happy Saturday, Andrew Boudreau. Good to see you. Mindy Doolin, good to see you. Okay, on that note, people, that's a wrap. And you know what? I got through the whole darn thing. Not sure how much Mothman. I'm sorry, but I love the Mothman. Or didn't say myth. This is a cat in the basket. You feel it? That right there is a cat in the basket. And I am Captain Tommy Scoville. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.